It is 10 a.m. in London, 2 p.m. in Islamabad. I'm Monita Rajpal. You're watching World One. We begin this hour in northwest Pakistan, where at least 80 people have been killed in a double suicide bomb attack. The Taliban is claiming responsibility for the blasts, which happened in Charsada, northwest Pakistan. They say the attack is revenge for the death of Osama bin Laden. Many of those killed were new military recruits, and this comes as Pakistan's army chief is due to address a closed session of Parliament, Pakistan's Parliament today, where he will be questioned and he'll be answering questions about the U.S. raid that captured Osama bin Laden. Of course, we will bring you more on the story here on World One. But now the Syrian government is bracing for another round of nationwide protests today. The government has been cracking down on demonstrations over the past 2 months in Daraa, in Homs, Banyas, and other cities. You're looking at some new video we found of tanks posted around the city of Homs. Isn't allowed into Syria, so it is difficult for us to verify all the stories and video that is coming out of that country. So we're joined now by Nadim Houri in Beirut, in neighboring Lebanon. He's a researcher with the group Human Rights Watch. Nadim, thank you very, very much for being with us. You know, we'd heard that the president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, had said he was working on instituting reforms, but that was almost months ago. What's going on in that country?
You know, it's almost Groundhog Day. Every Thursday and every Friday, President Bashar al-Assad promises reform.
Houri in Beirut, thank you so much for your time. More now on our top story in Pakistan and the suicide attack where at least 80 people were killed in the region in northwest Pakistan. It is this first major attack in that country since Osama bin Laden was killed 10 days ago. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh joins us now with more on that. Nick, we understand that the Pakistani Taliban have claimed responsibility. They're saying that's in retaliation for the killing of Osama bin Laden. But I'm curious to say, why would they be targeting Pakistanis in this? The recent uprisings in the Arab world have changed the face of history. What's more, they've cast a spotlight on major issues like democracy, freedom, and justice. Well, today, Amnesty International releases its annual report that says the need to protect human rights is as great as ever. Here are some of the findings. In the past year, the organization found 89 countries unlawfully restrict freedom of expression, and while the use of torture was found to exist in 98 countries. I also found that 2/3 of people in the world still don't have access to justice. And in addition to that, 48 countries are guilty of holding prisoners of conscience. Now, in Tunisia and Egypt, human rights abuses ultimately helped bring down both governments as people took to the streets saying enough is enough. Amnesty's Human Rights Report is being released as the organization prepares to mark its 50th anniversary. I'm joined now in the studio by the head of Amnesty International, Salil Shetty. Mr. Shetty, thank you very much for being with us. This is a time of unprecedented change in the Middle East, in the Arab world, but it certainly comes at such a high price.
Absolutely, and you know, that's we are celebrating 50th anniversary, but we're also celebrating the great personal risk at which the people of the Middle East...
What do you think your legacy is? 50 years now into Amnesty International. We've seen other groups as well come up, such as Human Rights Watch. Do you think anybody's really listening to groups like yours at the end of the day? You've got dictators doing whatever they want to do, governments doing whatever they want to do. Are they really taking seriously reports like this?
Well, I think, you know, it's very difficult for even the most oppressive dictators to ignore human rights issues.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay with us here on World One. Former world number one, Tiger Woods, suffers another setback. Welcome back. You're watching World One. Here are some of the stories we're talking about. It was meant to be a stealth attack in an online war over information, but instead, Facebook lost face. Last week, journalists received an all-caps email breathlessly informing them that Google was secretly violating its users' privacy. But instead of blasting Google, reporters traced the campaign back to its rival, Facebook, and accused the social networking site of masterminding a clumsy smear. Police in California have discovered a secret burial site. This giant hole is filled with the dismembered remains of ATM machines. That's right, folks, cash machines. Police think a thief in Fresno buried them under a garage to cover up his crime. The prime suspect is on the run. And journalism is a job fraught with peril. We've got wars, you've got national disasters, and you've got camels. This reporter came up against that last one while reporting on a dog attack at a farm in Virginia. The camel apparently mistook her hair for food. Well, I don't think a camel's going to make a mistake for food. Your hair, knowing all the stuff that you put in it. But anyway, from that.
What are you trying to say? I was just having a conversation with a makeup artist about cutting my hair because it's getting to that afro phase that we don't want to see on air. No, we don't want to see this.
It's a bit crazy.
Yeah,
Takes
it's
the attention
too much,
away from your reports.
and too much maintenance. Yeah, we're talking about it and we're wasting our viewers' time.
Well,
so I apologize for that.
From camels to tigers, then, shall we?
Yeah, let's go with that. You're talking about Tiger, but Tiger Woods, the man who many consider to be one of the best golfers of all time. He was really getting into the climax zone, we could call it, Monita. I'm going to stay up this weekend late, I can tell you, to watch the games that will be on tap.
Chelsea will be quiet.
Yes, it will be quiet. I'll be out.
Part of London.
Yeah, I'll be out of action.
All right, Pedro, thank you very much. You are watching World One live from London. To our top story now, those two suicide bomb blasts in northwest Pakistan. CNN's Stan Grant is at the scene of the explosions in Charsada, Pakistan. Joins us now on the phone. Stan. World One has been bringing you the story of the Libyans forced to run for their lives and to become refugees, jammed into overcrowded boats, shivering and hungry. Their fight for survival is just beginning. Well, CNN's Ivan Watson joins us now live from the Italian island of Lampedusa, where thousands of Libyan civilians have been arriving, hoping for a safer life. Ivan.
Monita, just moments ago, the second boat today arrived here in Lampedusa. We can't quite see because there's some trucks parked in the way.
Ivan Watson in Lampedusa in Italy, thank you so much. U.S. Defense Secretary Robert Gates is promising extra protection for the Navy SEALs who killed Osama bin Laden last week in Pakistan. Some have voiced concern about possible retaliation against themselves and their families. Well, as the fallout from the raid that killed bin Laden continues, another point that is getting attention is the legality of the raid itself. Let's see what newspapers around the world are saying about that. The Australian has a headline, "Bin Laden kill was legal, but we need to get story straight." It goes on to say it is quickly becoming apparent that the "who cares" retort will not wash, that Washington must establish a proper legal basis for having killed bin Laden. The Irish Times has this headline, "Bin Laden killing was not an assassination." The article says while there is virtually no public debate about summary execution, U.S. opinion is divided on the question of torture. Since bin Laden's death, former members of the Bush administration have repeatedly claimed that waterboarding and other methods practiced by the CIA enabled the U.S. to locate and kill him. And from the UAE, Gulf News has this headline, "Rule of law or law of the jungle." It goes on to say the killing of bin Laden sends a brutal message to the world that the execution of America's enemies takes precedence over any consideration of morality or international law. One issue, many views. You can read all those articles in full at facebook.com/W1CNN. The art world is standing up for human rights in China. We'll have more on the calls for artist Ai Weiwei's release. Welcome back. The art world is calling for galleries and museums around the world to shut their doors for a day in support of Chinese artist Ai Weiwei. Ai Weiwei, who is also a political activist, was detained by Chinese authorities in Beijing more than 5 weeks ago, and he hasn't been seen or heard from since. Now, 2 of his exhibitions have opened in London without him. Atika Schubert has more.
But his arrest simply seems to have fueled more demand for his work. Here in London, there are now several art spaces featuring his installations, and these posters with his quotes on it will be plastered across the city. And at each of these exhibitions, there is the same demand: release Ai Weiwei.
In the efforts of the art world to draw attention to his disappearance, we turn to artist Hamish Fulton. Mr. Fulton, thank you very much for being with us. I just want to repeat that quote from Ai Weiwei. He said, "Art is not about decoration. Art is about social change, and it's about our culture." Often people don't see artists as perhaps mediums of social change, do they? Welcome back. This is World One live from London. We're coming up on 6 a.m. in New York, noon in Berlin, 7 p.m. in Tokyo. Floods continue to wreak havoc in the United States. Let's go to our meteorologist, Jennifer Delgado at the World Weather Center with more on that. Jen.
Hi, Monita. And in fact, we picked up some rain overnight in some areas that certainly don't need any precipitation.
Yes, Monita.
Amazing video there, Jen.
Yep. They said they were shocked to see that across the region.
Thank you so much for that. Updating you of the top stories this hour. At least 80 people have been killed and more than 140 wounded in a double suicide bomb attack in northwest Pakistan. With CNN for the latest on all of those stories. Right now, that's it from me and the team here at World One in London. I'm Monita Rajpal. Thank you for watching.